Hello everybody. So today I am going to continue the beginners learning Blazor, and I'll be taking the Blazor components in the part 3 today. So watch on from start to begin, start to end, because if you want to derive the maximum benefit out of all these tutorials on Blazor, then you need to hang around. So here we go. Now we are going to discuss some rules guiding the component classes. You might have already used some of these rules already without realizing that these are actually part of the Blazor rules. And a component which is formed of a C# and HTML is referred to as a razor component. That is probably you already know. And the first letter of a component's name must start with an uppercase character. Hence, capital D in dialog is valid, whereas small d or lowercase d in dialog.razor, dialog component, is not. So the component class members which are defined in the @code block contains properties, fields and method for event handling. So let's recall our previous experience and switch over to Visual Studio. So I have created a dialog component in one of my previous courses, and if you look at this, there's this @code block, and it contains within the parameter attribute. So this parameter attribute, it is decorating the component as if these public properties are the parameters of this component. And this @code block, as you might have already learned, those who have attended all my earlier courses, that you know that this code block contains C# code basically, and it contains the public properties with parameter attribute and some event handling methods. So next thing is that I was going to show you that this @code block, you can have multiple @code block, and yet this course, this components will still work. So how do I prove it? Let me prove it by Control-Shift-B, building this application. So if everything is fine, then it will build. So you can see that build has succeeded. So you can work with more than one @code block, but normally you don't need to do that. But it is also valid. The next thing that I wanted to show you is that although @functions block, which was used for the same purpose as @code in the earlier preview versions of ASP.NET Core, that still works. Microsoft recommends using @code block. So let's switch over to Visual Studio again, and let me change this to @functions block. So if you write @functions and @functions again and try building this, Control-Shift-B, it still builds. So this is also valid. You can write either of these two, but Microsoft highly recommends that you should only use @code. So now I will get rid of these two blocks and keep just one block. And I'll just get rid of this @functions, and instead of functions I'll revert it back to @code. Okay, @code, and build it to make everything working. So the build has succeeded. Okay, so let's switch over to the slideshow and see what next. Now, using C# expression that start with an @, component members can be used as part of the rendering logic. So the Visual Studio Code example evaluates and renders. Let me switch over to Visual Studio first and show you. I have built a component.razor. This is the razor component. I have just named it, kept at the default name of component, and this has got a h2 header whose color style is getting derived from underscore heading color, which is blue, and heading message is derived from this. So what happens is that, if you run this code, Control F5, and I browse to /component, then you see that, where your blue Blazor forwarding. So what happens? So what is happening here, that, with this @, this value of the style for color attribute is substituted from this private string, this field, that is, and it takes blue, and it takes the message from this underscore heading message. So as soon as you write @, everything is filled magically from the corresponding fields in the code block. So what happens is that, after the component is initially rendered, the component regenerates its render tree in response to events. Just like, on click event, on input event. So there are events just like JavaScript. So you have event in Blazor also. So what happens that the component regenerates its render tree in response to those events. The Blazor then compares the new render tree against the previous one and applies any modification to the browser's DOM or document object model. Our components are ordinary C# classes and can be placed anywhere within the project. Now, components that produce web pages usually reside in the pages folder, and non-page components are frequently placed in the shared folder or a custom folder added to the project. Like, if you look back to this project, you can see that within the pages folder, I have created these components, component.razor or dialog.razor, and some of these fetch data or index, these were, and counter.razor were by default when the project was first created. And if it doesn't serve a web page, then it could be within the shared folder. However, you could create another custom folder named component or component folder, and if you have created my component, a component with the name of my components, and you can access that component by using the namespace using the root namespace dot your folder name. So if the root namespace is like here, this is the root namespace which is assumed with the name of the project. So if the root namespace is get started Blazor and the component folder is my components, then by using get started Blazor dot my components, you can make the components in the my components folder available. That's all. Thank you.